Personal finance isn't very romantic to talk about. Like on a date, asking someone how much you make or what your credit score is isn't very sexy. But these are the important questions to ask. Why? Because 38% report that financial problems are a cause for divorce. People are usually planning the details of their wedding, but they're not really going into the important stuff like their philosophy on money, what their spending habits are, and things like that. So we're gonna go over each of these questions that you should ask your partner. Now, first off, you should ask your partner how much your partner makes. It may be an awkward conversation, awkward thing to bring up, but it is important before you tie the knot to really be transparent with where you guys are at.
Knowing how much your partner makes is important because it allows you to have the conversations that you need to have to understand where you're going to be for the rest of your lives. This can affect decisions like when to have a kid, how many kids to have, what kind of house you're going to buy, where you're going to buy a house, can you go traveling, what kind of luxuries you can afford. And again, it's not like if someone doesn't make as much as you expected, you're going to leave them. It's more like you can have the conversation to plan accordingly. Or if you think they can do better, maybe you can encourage them to maybe get a higher paying position or even to just switch careers entirely if you think it's not worthwhile.
I think also thinking about like where you want to be in the future. Do you want to retire early? Like maybe you can figure out as a whole how much you guys make and then see if you need to add more in terms of like side hustles or see how you can jump jobs to increase your income. Studies show that the divorce rate steadily decreases from 40 to 30% as income increases. So it is important to talk about these numbers and to see if you can boost your income numbers if you have really large goals that you want to hit financially.
The next thing you need to talk to your partner about is what do they prioritize spending money on? Again, you want to understand what their spending habits are. If there's somebody who loves to shop for very expensive purses and buying jewelry when you are not the same person, it could create some conflict down the line because you might be making a lot of money and then your partner ends up spending all of it on what you think are trivial things. Or vice versa. Maybe you like spending money on fancy cars and then they don't appreciate that, then they may not like you very much. You guys need to be kind of on the same page when it comes to these big purchases and understand what they're spending their money on a regular basis.
We actually talked about this before, right? I asked you if I was someone who likes spending on this stuff, would you be okay with it? What was your answer?
I think I would be okay with it, but it would be hard and I wouldn't appreciate it as much as I appreciate you.
Aww. But yeah, these are the conversations you need to have. It can't be unexpected later after you tie the knot, right? Maybe you find their spending habits completely changed. They're all into like luxury goods and stuff like that, and you can't handle that. You need to be transparent about this stuff.
Right, or if they have a gambling problem and all your money is gone.
Number 3, you have to talk about what you own and what you owe, which is basically your net worth number. Your net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. So you should go over how much you have in your accounts, if you have property, if you have other things like that, and like the liabilities, your credit card debt, maybe your car loan or your mortgage. You have to go over these numbers to kind of see where you're at. If you're in the negative with high interest debt or not, and if you're okay with that.
All right, the next thing you need to discuss is your credit score. When it comes to getting a mortgage or a car loan, the first thing you're gonna check is your credit score. And if you're married to someone with a very low credit score, it could also impact your credit score down the line in case you're trying to get something together. So for example, when I was a loan officer, I would sometimes do loans for couples who needed both of their incomes to qualify for a loan, but one person's credit score was so much lower than the others that they weren't able to qualify. So these things do happen, and it is important, again, to be transparent with your partner about where your credit scores are at. And again, if someone is really low, it's not a big deal. You just have to work together to boost it in the future.
I remember on Love is Blind, they had a topic about credit score. Like there was one couple where one of them asked them about their credit score and felt like they lied to them about it. And it was a whole discussion, I think, online, and people actually thought that she was being unfair to judge his financial situation and thinking that like it shouldn't deter her from marriage. But in reality, I actually side with her in that scenario that like you need to be upfront with your finances and where you are at financially. Like I wouldn't want to marry someone who I don't know anything about their financial situation, especially knowing the stat that divorce is caused by these types of issues, right? Like if you don't know where they're at financially, it can cause a lot of problems down the road.
Right, and then the credit score is a reflection on their current spending habits too. So if their score is much lower than the other person's, then the person with a higher credit score needs to kind of see like why, how did they get so low? Is it because they don't pay their creditors on time? Is it because they are shady in some way, shape or form? These are telltale signs. And again, not like you leave the person, but you can help them improve it and seeing where they're having issues.
This kind of leads to another question that you should ask is, how did you and your family deal with money growing up? And this kind of influences a lot on your like money philosophy. So it's important to understand, like, did you grow up with tight budget? Did you grow up with debt? And were you investing money at all? Or were people just like extravagantly spending a lot of money? Like, this is how you understand like people's psychology, I think, around money.
Because there are some people out there who think that accumulating money is actually evil. So if that's the case, then if you're married to that kind of person, then there's no chance that you're going to be able to be wealthy in the future.
Another thing you should discuss is what are the habits you want to keep and what are the habits that you want to drop that maybe your parents used to do. This will create that healthy conversation of like what you guys want to do moving forward with your money and figure out how you're going to create that financial security and wealth.
Another big topic that could be a cause of issue is how much do you want to spend on the wedding? Because some people want like the best day of their lives and are easily willing to drop over $100,000 for that one perfect night. Whereas another person is going to think, well, I'd rather take that $100,000 and use it towards us. Like that's a down payment for a house or towards a child. So again, that really depends on the individual person. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. I think you guys just need to both be on the same page about your budget for that big day.
This actually is a huge topic of discussion. There's even a show about it called Marriage or Mortgage, and they basically decided, do we want the perfect house or the perfect wedding? And then, you know, if they have that perfect wedding, maybe they'll have to save up again for that house. And I don't want to judge saying like one way is wrong or one way is right, but you guys do have to be on the same page. Like, I'm okay with this, right? Now, according to the Knot, the average wedding costs about $30,000, and then the average cost of a honeymoon is around $4,000. So it is a good amount of money, and some can go up to like 6 figures, and it really depends on how you want to deal with that wedding. Personally, for me, I didn't really care. Like, I didn't even need like a wedding, but we did one at $13,000. If you guys want to look at my video on this, go check it out on my channel. I basically break down how much we spent on every single thing there. But like for me, I knew that this was just one day. I'd rather like put that money into investments and things like that. So that's just my own personal philosophy, and that's something you should discuss with your partner. Question 7 is, what are your thoughts on prenups? So prenups typically list your assets, your debts, and it also outlines how you guys would handle this after divorce.
So there are several different pros and cons to a prenup. Obviously, the pro is if something happens, everything's already outlined. It makes the process of divorce a lot smoother. People aren't going to be as nasty as if they have to split the assets after you're divorced. You're basically agreeing to how to split things up while you still like each other instead of how to split things up when you guys hate each other. Now, of course, the downside is it makes for a very awkward marriage and conversation because you're basically kind of saying that, look, like we might fail, right? You're assuming you might fail. So most of the cons are honestly things like you may create emotional strain, like having that conversation. It's pretty unromantic. It could be perceived as a lack of trust. Like maybe, you think something's gonna happen with your partner in the future. And of course, within the terms itself, maybe some of the terms may not be as good in the future as they are now. So, again, pros and cons to it. Honestly, the biggest con, in my opinion, is that you're basically expecting your marriage to fail at some point. For us, I think we came to the marriage with very similar assets. So I didn't think that we needed a prenup because if we were to split, I don't think we're going to, but if we were to split, it's like we came into it pretty evenly. When we leave, we'll probably leave evenly as well. So next thing you need to talk about with your fiance is how you are going to split your finances. Are you going to have separate bank accounts? Are you going to have one joint account? How are you going to pay for the bills? I think this is a very important conversation because I've seen some videos where, one person makes a lot more money than another person, but they contribute equally to the mortgage. So the person who makes less money is spending a majority of their income on the mortgage. Whereas I think for other couples, they put all their money into a joint account, and then from the joint account, bills are split, yada, yada. This way, it's, I think, a little bit less nitpicky here. It's just that you make money, that money goes to a joint pool, and then from that joint pool, you pay all of your personal expenses. And then I think what we have is kind of a hybrid approach. We have a main joint account, but we also have our own separate bank accounts for our own fund money and our own personal uses. But it's not like our personal money is a significant amount and we're making these crazy purchases with those joint accounts. These are just like small things here and there for our own use.
You just need to make sure with your partner you don't commit financial infidelity. And this is something that causes a lot of marriages to end up in divorce. There shouldn't be secrets on how you spend or manage your money. One thing we now do is that we have like a certain budget every month that we're allowed to use for our own selves if we ever need it. We rarely ever use it, I would say, because we do a lot of our things jointly, but there's some times where we might have different values, and I want to spend on something, maybe he's not about it, or he wants to spend on something and I'm not about it, but then we're just like, all right, veto, like this is part of my fun money. So you could have like a personal money that's allowed for yourself that like your partner doesn't have say about, that you can use every single month, so you kind of keep that independence in a certain way. Number 9, you want to ask about the timeline for starting a family and how much you would want to spend on that kid. So people might have different views on how much they want to spend, for example, for like college, or if they want to do daycare or have a nanny or something like that.
Some families might want to have everything done by themselves, take them to public school. Others might want their kids to go to private school and they pay for the whole university track. So again, you need to have the conversation with your partner about how you're going to deal with the child and the finances around the child.
Once you have those numbers set, you can actually use like a high yield savings account and put buckets for each of your savings goals so that you are putting money towards it. And you can also do a recurring transfer to your brokerage account to make sure you're investing money to hit your goals. These are important things to outline so that you can work backwards and then make sure that you hit the milestones by taking action on those steps.
And the last one is to just ask them, what are your financial goals? Because different people have different goals. Some people want to work really hard at their job and make a lot of money this way. Other people want to retire early and then live abroad like we are. I think everyone has different goals, and you need to prioritize the most important ones and find a way to work on them together. Because if one person has different goals than you do, it's going to be really rough for the marriage.
The latest season on Love is Blind, they also had a conversation where one guy was like, I want to retire early, so I do want to live more frugally. Whereas the girl wanted to be more in the moment and spend more. And they're going to have to figure out a compromise as well. Funny that I am doing all these examples from Love is Blind, but it's like interesting to see how couples interact around money. But this is like very important stuff to talk about before you get married, because you can be completely on different pages, just be in your romantic bubble until shit hits the fan, and then you're like realizing that you are totally not on the same page on these things that are extremely important to make sure you are financially secure and building wealth. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode on all these questions you should ask before getting married. We covered all of these questions before we got married so that we knew what we were getting into.
And marriage is a very serious commitment, something you can't take lightly. So make sure you have these difficult conversations before you get married instead of dealing with these problems after you get married, and it's a lot harder to go back and get unmarried.
If you guys like this episode, make sure to comment below. Let me know which point resonated with you. Smash the like button, subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified when I latest videos. I'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.